ready for another Lemons chapter? Remember how the last chapter ended? When they found Tobin's dad in the woods and they called Charlie for help and Miss Dickerson. So our next chapter, I'm so curious to see what happens. I just want to dive right in to chapter 46, titled Reunited. Lemonade. That's Charlie. His heavy boots pounding the dirt and crunching the leaves and pine needles outside the nest. Tobin, he calls out, where are you? Here, Charlie, I call back. We're here in the nest. More pounding and swatting of branches and crunching ground as Charlie's footsteps get closer and closer. When he appears in the doorway of the nest, he's all out of breath. And he's so tall he has to duck his head to get inside. Lem, Tobe, he huffs, sounding relieved. What is the, where are, who? He chokes and sputters, looking down at Scotty, still in a ball in the corner. So he knows who he is, right? That's Scotty. Tobin. It's Debbie coming up behind Charlie, grabbing his arm and squeezing her head into the doorway. Lemonade! She still has on her white nurse's uniform. Her hair is still twisted up in a knot under her nurse's cap. Her normally spotless shoes are covered with mud. What's going on here? She pushes her way in, past Charlie, and rushes to Tobin's side. She turns him all around in every direction, looking him over top to bottom to make sure he's all in one piece, and then grabs my hand and pulls me close to her like she's guarding us from a wild animal. Who is that? She asks. Who are you? She demands. Mom, Tobin whispers. It's Dad. Debbie's mouth falls open and she stares hard at Scotty. What did you say? It's him, Mom. It's really him. I guess he must have gotten lost or something. It's quiet again, while Debbie watches the man hiding in the corner, his eyes still darting and his body still curled in a tight ball. Scotty? She says really slowly, like she hardly believes her eyes. Oh man, I wonder what she must be going through right now, right? Oh man. He is still a caught animal ready to be slaughtered. Slaughtered up into jerky bits or to be bagged and shelved in the fine cuisine section of Bigfoot souvenirs and more. Now, is that really what he's probably thinking about, or is that Lem's dramatization of what's going through his head? Scotty? Debbie says, louder this time and stepping towards him. Is it really you? Scotty's body ball is so tight now, it looks like he's trying to make himself invisible, so we all forget he's still sitting in the corner of the nest. In the beams of our flashlights, we watch his matted red head slowly bob up and then down. Does Scotty seem okay to you guys right now? I feel like he's probably going through a lot too and maybe needs some help, right? And that's when I see something I will always remember. For my whole life, I will remember it. Debbie rushes toward him in her dirty nurse's dress and muddy shoes, falling down to her knees and wrapping her arms around him with so much love it makes my eyes blur. They blur up even more when I see her thin shoulders shake against him as she cries, loud and hard. I watch her rock him back and forth, the way you might rock a tiny newborn baby snuggled up in a tight swaddle. Scotty, she sobs and rocks and sobs. My Scotty, she says over and over again, kissing his dark, muddy cheeks. My Scotty, I love you so much. I just love you so much. I thought we'd never see you again. I look over at Tobin and see a whole bunch of tears, all stuck up between his cheeks and the bottom of his glasses. Then I look up at Charlie and see tears rolling down and getting caught up in his beard. I wipe my own tears away with my forearm. We all cry, seeing the love Debbie has for this man she has waited for and prayed for and hoped for. This man she loves with deep down love. It reminds me of the time I wrapped my own arms around Mama in the hospital on that very worst day of my entire life. I bet my shoulders shook when her chest stopped moving up and down just then. I bet I shook just like Debbie. Except these tears are different. Hers, mine, Tobin's, and Charlie's. While we watch her deep down love. These tears are happy tears. With Mama, I was trying to hold on to something I had to let go. And Debbie is holding on to something she gets to keep. No, these are happy tears for sure. But watching Debbie, Charlie, and Tobin right this second sure makes me miss Mama. I miss her like something inside me hurts so bad there isn't anything on this earth that could hurt me more. Not a bullet or a knife or gangrene or even an insect-related scourge. Right now, I'd give anything to be with Mama like that. One more chance to be able to wrap my arms around her and hold her tight and rock her small, frail body just like Debbie gets to with Scotty. If somebody gave me that chance again, I'd never let her go. Not ever. And I'd hold on to her just like Debbie is holding on to Scotty with deep down love. And right this minute, when I feel like I'm getting sucked back into the sadness quicksand, I look up at Charlie again and then slip my hand into his, the big hand with the special ring on it. His fingers fold around mine, just like Mama's used to, and he squeezes my hand tight. And I squeeze his hand back, just in case he has his own quicksand. I don't think I can wait to read the next chapter. Let's just dive right into chapter 47, which is called Thankful. It's the middle of the night when we make it home from the hospital in Blue Lake. Tobin and I waited a long, long time on the bench welded to the wall until Debbie came in to get us for a short visit in Scotty's hospital room. The hospital? I wonder, why do you think they're in the hospital? But not before we scrubbed all the germs from our hands with disinfectant hospital soap and crossed our hearts, promising only to stay for 5 minutes. Scotty already looked better. He was all cleaned up and someone had cut his hair and shaved off his beard to make him look more like the man in the picture next to Debbie's bed and Tobin's too. He had even eaten half a hospital cheeseburger and some of his fries. I have so many questions, but figure it's best not to ask them until he's well again. Plus Tobin would probably just roll his eyes right out of his head by the time I was done with all my asking. I don't remember the ride home because I fell asleep on the front seat of Jake. I wake up when Charlie carries me inside and sets me on top of my bed. Charlie, I say, rubbing my eyes. It's late, Lem. He pulls off one of my tennis shoes and then the other one. We can talk in the morning. Why was Tobin's dad living in the woods out back behind Miss Dickerson's garden? Charlie breathes out long and hard and sits down next to me on the bed. He has something called CSR, Lem, he says, combat stress reaction. Sometimes it's called battle fatigue or shell shock. It's what some soldiers experience after they must see and do terrible things during a war. Right now he needs rest and he needs some time to make sense of things he has experienced. He needs help with his memories. Do you know, so these are words that they used before to describe this. Does anyone know what that disorder is called now? Like PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. So Tobin's dad, Scotty, was away at war and saw some really scary stuff. And then when he came back, he had PTSD, which is something that, you know, takes a long time to work through. It's very complicated and very different for all the different people that experience that. It's heavy. This is a heavy book. I guess even Scotty has his own quicksand. So that's how Lem is kind of understanding what Scotty's going through, right? She calls it, in her own experience, she feels it as quicksand. So then she's now realizing, oh, Charlie has his own quicksand. Maybe they call it something different. Oh, Scotty has his own quicksand. Probably Tobin, probably Debbie, probably Miss Dickerson. Like, This is the word she's using to kind of relate what she's gone through and going through to what maybe some other people are going through as well, right? But why didn't he just go home and to get all that, I ask, thinking about the special ring on Debbie's finger. Debbie would have helped him. Didn't he know that she has deep down love for him? Debbie would have done anything he needed. I know it. I'm sure you're right about that, Charlie says. CSR, or what we now call PTSD, is hard to understand because you can't see it like you can see a broken arm or a gangrene. Yeah, he smiles. Like you can see gangrene. Some people don't even want to believe that CSR is real or PTSD is real, but it is very real. And the soldiers need support after they've been through it. All I can say is that Scotty will be okay after he gets treatment at the hospital. He might be there for a time, but the doctors know what to do to help him. And he'll be able to go back home one day to live with Tobin and Debbie? Yes, Lem. They can finally be a family again. That's good then, I say. Yep. He sighs and stands up. It's wonderful. Now get some sleep. Hey, Charlie? Lem, it's late. Crawl in now and we'll talk more tomorrow, he says, lifting the comforter up for me to burrow under. Just one more thing, I tell him, pulling it over my clothes. What is it? How did Scotty get all the way from Vietnam back to the woods in Willow Creek? He begins tucking the comforter tight all around me. Remember when I told you that Scotty had been MIA, missing in action? And then they rescued him last year? Yes, I say, I remember. You said he made it to the base in Oakland and then disappeared. Yes, well, Scotty told us an amazing story of survival, he tells me. He had been on a top secret mission when he was captured. His entire squad was killed, but he survived. The army thought that he had been killed, and unfortunately, Scotty ended up spending the next 3 years in a prison in the jungle, where he was horribly tortured until another top secret squad finally found him and rescued him last year. That's when they sent soldiers to the house to let Debbie know that he was alive. Remember when I told you that Debbie and Tobin went to pick him up at the airport and found out that he never made it on the plane? Yes. Something happened to him on his way to catch the flight. What? I asked. With combat stress reaction, or PTSD. Sometimes a person's memories are so strong that it makes them uncertain if a memory is something that happened in the past or if it's happening in the present. Kind of like a dream, I ask, thinking of all the dreams I've had of Mama and me at Sunshines on the Bay. It feels so real when it's happening that it's like she's still there with me. Exactly, he says. It was the loud noises at the airport that confused his brain, loud noises that sounded like the explosions or gunfire he experienced in the jungle. Those noises confused him, and it's like he started to dream that he was back in the jungle again, back in danger. So he did what he learned to do to stay safe. He escaped to the cover of the woods. That's why he didn't get on the plane? Because his memories were confused? I ask. That's right. But he looked okay to me when we saw him in the hospital. It's something that comes on a bit unexpectedly. It could still happen if he experiences something that reminds him of the jungle. Does that make sense? I suppose so, I say. But I still don't know why he wouldn't just let Debbie know all that. Did he forget about her deep down love? He told the doctors that once he made it back to Willow Creek on his own, he couldn't face Debbie and Tobin. He said he tried many times to make it up those front porch steps, but he couldn't do it. He said that he just couldn't share with them what he had been through because it was too horrible. He wanted to protect them from all that he had seen and experienced out in the jungle so they wouldn't have to experience it too. So he watched over them from the woods, hoping one day that he would be able to be with them again. I think hard about everything Charlie has told me. You're right, I tell him. That is hard to understand. Yes, he agrees. When will he get to go home for good? That depends on his healing. I hope he's healed up soon. Me too. Hey, Charlie? Lem, it's so late. One more question. I really promise this time. What is it? Scotty didn't say anything about seeing the Bigfoot while he was living up behind Mr. Dickerson's, did he? Charlie smiles. No, he sure didn't. I say. Good night, Lem. Charlie? He chuckles. I'm not going to sleep anytime soon, am I? Just one more thing. Then I really and truly promise to go to sleep. Cross my heart this time. Okay, what is it? I'm happy for Tobin and Debbie too. I am. But it also, well, it doesn't really seem fair. Fair, he asks. I mean, first, when he got to even hope that his dad was coming back, I wished I could hope too. You know, that Mama would come back to us too. But now Tobin actually gets his dad back. But Mama is never coming back. I can't even hope for it. And it's just not fair is all. Charlie sits back down on the edge of the bed and puts a warm hand on top of my knee. I can certainly understand why you feel that way, he says. And you're right. It isn't fair. It doesn't mean I'm bad to feel like that. No, Lem, not at all. I mean, I'm still happy for them, I say. I really am, but I'm also sad for me. And for you, even for Miss Dickerson. Charlie drops his head and sighs. I'm happy for them and sad for us too, he says. I think that's a very normal feeling to have. I smile at him. Thanks, Charlie. Good night, Lem, he says. Night, I say, snuggling down under my rainbow comforter. I watch him turn off the light and walk toward the door. Charlie? Yes, Lem. He turns back to face me from the doorway, the light from the hall shining on him. You are what I'm most thankful for today. Charlie looks at me for a long time without saying anything, and then clears his throat a bunch of times. Lemonade, Liberty, Wit, he finally says. You are what I'm most thankful for every day. Oh my gosh. So many heavy things happening in this book. I can't handle it. No, I can't. That's a lot though, right? I know in this chapter they were talking about what they used to call CSR. Now we call PTSD. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to talk to your parents or, a guardian, or like if you want to ask me about it, we can talk about it privately. And that's a pretty intense, heavy thing to kind of wrap your head around sometimes. I think it's also really interesting how Lem is kind of sharing that she has like complicated feelings, because that's so totally fair and like very human in a situation like that to feel lots of different things. That's so human, right? Like we rarely feel just one specific thing at a time, right? There's lots of different things that are contributing to how we're feeling, and I really like how she shared that in that chapter. So it looks like we only have a couple chapters left. I'll see you back here soon for chapter 48 called Always Together. Bye.